What is actually happening to our bodies just by living a 21st century life?
We have to begin with what some of the research calls the hidden collapse.
Hidden collapse,
Yeah.
okay.
And you can think of it as this unsettling moment of biological awakening. We spend our lives in these environments that are defined by convenience.
Right, ergonomic chairs, screens, cars.
Exactly. We're sitting, we're staring, we're driving, and we realize, often way too late, that this convenience has been quietly reshaping our physical structure without our permission.
It's the architecture of convenience causing a slow mechanical implosion. I like that. The story we're always sold is that, stiffness, tightness, that's just aging. It's inevitable.
Right. You're just getting older.
But these sources really challenge that. They suggest the breakdown is largely because of an environmental mismatch. The world we live in is just. It's fundamentally incompatible with the body we were given.
The human body is an absolute marvel of three-dimensional engineering. Yeah. I mean, it was built for movement in a full 360 degrees.
To climb, hang, swing.
To squat, to crawl. But modern life, it forces it into this really restricted, almost two-dimensional reality. We are perpetually forced into what the sources call the sitting shape.
And mechanically, what is that? What defines the sitting shape and why is it so damaging?
It is defined, really, entirely by compression and contraction. The pelvis rotates backward, which pulls the lower spine into flexion.
So it curves the wrong way?
Yes. And the shoulders roll inward, they protract, pulled forward because our chest muscles are constantly shortened. The head juts forward in that dreaded tech neck. And crucially, the spine is just relentlessly compressed. Your joints are locked into these static, totally unnatural angles for hours and hours on end.
So this sustained stress, which we think of as just normal life.
We think it's normal.
It leads directly to poor shoulder range, bad posture, and that chronic, unrelenting tightness we all feel. Neck, traps, lats.
It's like we've been folded into a permanent cage.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Because the dead hang uses the very force that's responsible for this collapse and turns it into the solution. It's the gravity paradox.
Yeah.
But I have to push back a little here. Isn't any kind of inversion, hanging upside down on a table or something, isn't that doing the same thing?
That's a great question.
Why is the dead hang unique here?
You're right that other inversions, even some advanced yoga poses, they can offer a measure of decompression, for sure. But the dead hang represents an inversion in its purest form. It carries this unique triple threat.
A triple thread.
Yes.
Here.
Decompression, high-load isometric grip training, and full shoulder articulation.
Yeah.
All at the same time, simultaneously.
So if gravity is the thing that's pulling you down and compressing you,
Day in, day out.
the solution is to use that exact same force, but apply it from above to decompress you. It's a literal physics reversal.
Exactly right. And this aligns so beautifully with that principle of inversion that Charlie Munger always talked about. To solve a problem, you look at the consequences and you try to reverse the cause. Gravity is the silent, pervasive architect of this modern structural collapse. And the dead hang just flips that entire equation.
Instead of squeezing the spine, it creates space.
Yes. And instead of locking the shoulders forward, it opens them up into their intended overhead position where they're supposed to be.
It's the simplest possible inversion, and it has the power to start physically undoing years of damage.
Just by giving the body the fundamental stimulus it actually evolved for.
That is a perfect framing, and it leads us right into the core mechanical benefits, starting with the area that suffers, arguably the most from this constant downward pressure, the spine.
Right.
Let's turn to the physiological effects the moment we counteract that force.
The moment you suspend your body weight, the mechanical truth is that you are instantly giving your vertebrae a vacation. It's what we could call spinal rebirth.
Okay, so we're talking about decompression. What's the actual mechanism here? Is this comparable to, professional medical treatments?
It's often directly compared to traction therapy that you'd get in a physical therapy setting. Wow. When you assume a dead hang, the force of gravity applied through your hands creates this gentle, self-administered traction on the entire spinal column. The physics of it just gently creates what the sources describe as tiny openings. It increases the space between the bony parts of your vertebrae.
And that new space, even if it's momentary, is vital for the health of the intervertebral discs, right?
It's absolutely essential. Those discs are the soft, jelly-like structures between the bones. They're your shock absorbers. And when we sit for hours, we put constant sustained pressure on them. They flatten out, they dehydrate. Imagine a sponge that's just being squeezed continuously.
It loses its volume, its ability to absorb anything.
Exactly. Can't get nutrients. So the hang is like finally releasing the pressure on that sponge.
Letting it breathe, so to speak.
Precisely. This temporary disc pressure relief allows those spinal tissues to draw in moisture, nutrients, and oxygen. It's a process called imbibition.
Imbibition.
And it helps the discs rehydrate, maintain their plump, resilient shape. This is what leads to that universally reported stretch-out sensation.
Yeah, everyone who does them talks about that feeling.
And it feels nothing short of restorative, especially for anyone who spends hours a day compressed at a desk.
That restorative feeling, then, contributes directly to a posture reset. The compressed spine is a massive contributor to slouching, to that forward head position.
It is.
So how does the hang actively correct this?
Well, the dead hang works on two levels for posture. First, you have the decompression itself, which lengthens the spine and lets it temporarily revert to a more natural curve.
Okay, that's the passive part.
Right. And second, by strengthening, stretching, and mobilizing the entire upper body, specifically lengthening those tight tissues in the front, like the chest and shoulders, you actively reverse the postural slump. You're pulling things back into alignment.
So it's essentially reminding the body what a sovereign upright spine actually feels like.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. It provides the proprioceptive feedback that you need for better alignment. When the chest opens up and the shoulders are allowed to rotate externally, the body learns to hold itself in a more unrestricted way.
It moves away from that hunched defensive posture.
The posture imposed by the sitting shape, yeah.
Now, we do have to introduce an important nuance here. There's some expert caution about how permanent the spinal relief is. The sources note that the benefits might only be temporary. So should we be skeptical about the long-term benefit?
That is a critical point. And it's true. The spinal lengthening you get from a 2-minute hang might be temporary. I mean, the compressive forces of gravity and your body weight, they come right back the second you step onto the ground.
Right.
And because so many other tissues are also stretching, your lats, the shoulder capsule, it's very hard to isolate and say this much of that good feeling is purely spinal lengthening.
So why bother if the length doesn't last? What's the point?
Because the value isn't in achieving some permanent static length. It's in the consistent stimulation and movement that combats the daily prolonged compression.
Ah, so it's about the frequency.
It's all about consistency preventing permanent damage. The sources suggest that consistent, even temporary decompression prevents the cumulative stiffness, the potential permanent fusing that can happen when those discs are just perpetually starved of space and fluid.
So it's like a daily maintenance routine.
It's a powerful act of daily maintenance. It's like a regular oil change for a high-performance engine. You wouldn't expect an oil change to last forever, but you absolutely need it to keep the machine running optimally.
That makes perfect sense. The cumulative effect of decompressing for a few minutes every day outweighs the constant cumulative compression you're under the rest of the day.
Absolutely. And, the spine is really only half the battle. We need to move on to the next major mechanical beneficiary, which is the shoulder complex.
Arguably the most complex and most abused joint in the modern world.
This is what we're calling the shoulder riddle.
The shoulder is so often starved of space. And that leads to irritation, instability, and that very, very common problem of impingement.
The shoulder is totally unique because it sacrifices stability for this incredible range of motion. But modern posture shoulders pulled forward, chest collapsed. It dramatically narrows the anatomical space within that complex joint. Impingement happens precisely when the rotator cuff tendons, especially the supraspinatus tendon, get caught or pinched.
Pinched between the arm bone and the shoulder blade.
Between the top of the humerus and the acromion, yeah.
So the dead hang provides a literal mechanical solution to this structural narrowing.
It does, through what we can call shoulder decompression. By using gravity, the hang literally pulls space into the joint. The overhead position forces the external rotation of the shoulder joint, which is the exact opposite movement of that inward rolling caused by desk work.
This is where Dr. John M. Kirsch's work becomes so pivotal, right? He's an orthopedic surgeon who advocates for this simple exercise over surgery in many cases. Can we detail his core mechanism? Why does he think this works?
Dr. Kirsch's advocacy is centered on that supraspinatus tendon, which is just crucial for shoulder strength and mobility.
Right.
When a compromised, painful shoulder is raised, that tendon often gets trapped and inflamed.
Right.
What Kirsch discovered was that when the arms are raised straight overhead in a dead hang, even a completely passive one, The traction just slightly shifts the head of the humerus, the arm bone.
And that tiny shift is enough to open up that subacromial space.
Exactly. It creates the anatomical space that allows the tendon to move, to stretch, and to be exercised without being painfully pinched.
Wow.
So you're not just stretching the tight tissues like the lats and pecs, which are often the culprits pulling the shoulder out of alignment in the first place.
You're creating a healing environment.
You're creating a temporary sanctuary for the tendons to heal and strengthen themselves naturally. It resolves impingement not by masking the pain, but by correcting the mechanical root cause, which is the lack of space.
That's phenomenal because it targets the cause, not just the symptom. And beyond the big muscles and tendons, what's the dead hang doing for the microscopic health of the joint?
This is where we have to talk about synovial fluid circulation.
Yeah.
And while it's helpful to call it the oil of your joints, for a deep dive audience, we should probably get into the mechanism.
Let's get technical.
So synovial fluid is what nourishes the articular cartilage inside the joint capsule. Unlike your muscles, cartilage has no blood vessels.
Right.
So it relies entirely on the movement of this fluid to draw in nutrients and get rid of waste.
And sitting static postures just starves the cartilage of that fluid.
It does. So when you introduce this gentle, continuous traction through a dead hang across the wrists, the elbows, the shoulders, you change the pressure gradient within the joint capsule.
Okay.
This mechanical change actively encourages that synovial fluid to circulate and penetrate the cartilage. It's that process again, imbibition.
So it's feeding the joints.
This is what keeps the cartilage healthy, resilient, and keeps your joints moving smoothly and without pain. We're not just stretching muscles, we're actively feeding the joint structures themselves.
And this consistent practice also strengthens the surrounding connective tissue, which the sources suggest lowers the risk of overuse injuries.
Absolutely. The connective tissues adapt to that high-load, continuous tension. And that kind of resilience is crucial for activities that involve repetitive, dynamic motion.
Like throwing or tennis or pitching.
Exactly. Racket sports, all those places where small overuse injuries are so common. The dead hang is essentially prehabbing your joints for you.
And we saw really compelling real-world application here, specifically the anecdotal evidence about tendon issues like golfer's elbow and long-term impingement.
That community discussion was powerful. I mean, we saw multiple users reporting pain reduction, even complete resolution of tendinitis after they started doing near-daily hangs.
And for golfer's elbow, which is tendinitis on the inner elbow,
the hang stretches the flexor muscles and tendons of the forearm, giving them relief from that constant shortened state they're often held in when you're gripping or typing.
But we do need to pause on the expert caution here. One professional advised starting rehab simply and adding stuff like hangs later on.
Yeah. That's based on a cornerstone of evidence-based physical therapy. You have to isolate variables. If you introduce 5 new stretches and 3 new movements all at once and the pain goes away, you have no idea which one was actually responsible. For therapeutic precision, isolating is key.
And that makes sense.
However, the user reports strongly suggest that for chronic multifactorial issues like impingement or tendinitis, a holistic movement like the dead hang, which addresses space, circulation, strength, and length all at once, can often be the simple, high-leverage intervention that finally breaks the cycle of pain.
It's the difference between targeted pharmacology and holistic nutrition. Both can work, but the hang seems to address multiple deficiencies at the same time.
That's a great analogy.
The anecdote about the 78-year-old with a deep, non-surgical rotator cuff tear,
Yes.
who reported having no pain while hanging, is just incredibly compelling evidence of the mechanical relief this movement provides.
It speaks volumes. The body is often just crying out for space, and the hang provides it almost instantly. But there's another massive benefit that extends beyond the shoulder and spine.
Okay.
And that's the specific tension it places on the hands and forearms, which leads us directly into our discussion on longevity.
This brings us to the grip signal. I think most people, they associate grip strength purely with, lifting weights in a gym.
Right, athletic performance.
But the data here positions it as a critical and measurable biomarker for our overall health.
Grip strength is arguably one of the most accurate, accessible, and easily measurable predictors of health span and longevity available to us, period.
Why is that?
Because the strength of your hands mirrors the overall health and strength of your entire neuromuscular system. When your hands get weaker, it's a sign of a systemic decline in muscle mass, nervous system efficiency, and structural integrity.
And the research supporting this is I mean, it's non-negotiable.
It is powerful. A landmark 2015 study in The Lancet concluded that lower grip strength in older adults is directly linked to a higher risk of heart disease, falls, fractures, hospitalization,
And all-cause mortality.
and crucially, all-cause mortality. It's cited as a stronger, more reliable predictor of early death than even established indicators like systolic blood pressure.
So if you want a simple way to gauge or improve your overall vitality, look no further than your ability to hold your own body weight.
Exactly.
And this is where the dead hang just truly shines. It's the most effective exercise for developing both grip strength and endurance.
Because it forces the hands and forearms to bear 100% of your body weight under constant static high tension. It's an isometric hold that builds this type of resilient endurance that isolated exercises like squeezing a ball they just can't replicate.
And to quantify this, we have to look at that fascinating 8-week study on advanced sport climbers. For them, grip is everything. Let's unpack the difference between the two groups, the maximal hangs group and the intermittent hangs group.
This study gives us crucial insight into how to tailor the dead hang for specific goals. The climbers compared two main methods. The maximal dead hangs, or max hangs, they focused on pure strength.
So short holds with added weight.
Right. Shortest possible duration. The other group, the intermittent dead hangs, or in hangs, sometimes called repeaters, they focused on volume and endurance.
Which was what, hanging for 10 seconds, resting for 5?
Exactly. Repeated multiple times.
And the results for endurance in that intermittent group were just staggering.
They were astounding. The in-hangs group, the one focusing on high-volume, short bursts of anaerobic work, achieved a significant 45% gain in grip endurance in just 8 weeks.
45% is massive. Why is that intermittent method so much more effective for pure endurance than just one maximal effort?
Because endurance training for the finger flexors, the muscles that do the gripping, is highly volume dependent. The in-hangs method maximizes the total time your muscles are under tension,
Right.
while allowing just enough rest, that little 5 seconds, to partially clear out metabolites and slightly replenish ATP. This lets the athlete stack work without failing immediately,
So it conditions the body to sustain repeated near maximal efforts.
which is the definition of endurance. And for you, the listener, this translates directly to better stamina when you're carrying groceries, shoveling snow, or, preventing a fall.
That connection between high volume and endurance is key. But what's really interesting is that the max hangs group, the ones focused on maximal strength,
Yeah?
they still saw a notable 34% improvement in endurance.
This is a critical finding. It validates the principle that training for maximal strength raises your entire strength ceiling.
Oh.
If your maximum grip capacity goes up, then holding your own body weight, which is now a sub-maximal effort, becomes significantly easier. It just naturally extends your endurance time.
So either way you train it, it works.
It confirms the dead hang's fundamental effectiveness as a universal strength builder, whether you focus on endurance volume or maximal load.
So the grip is the primary mover here, but the dead hang is building foundational strength across the entire upper kinetic chain, especially in the back, right?
Absolutely. It strengthens the latissimus dorsi, the lats, which are the largest muscle group on your back. They're critical for all pushing and pulling exercises.
And engaging them helps with shoulder stability.
It does. It aids in shoulder stability and allows for a full range of motion. And on top of that, the forearms are growing bigger and stronger because they're forced into this constant total body isometric tension. It's a far superior stimulus than isolated movements like forearm curls.
And maybe the most practical takeaway for anyone looking to increase their fundamental strength, it's the perfect preparatory exercise for a pull-up.
It is the essential stepping stone. The dead hang provides the prerequisite foundation. You need the grip strength, you need the forearm endurance, and you need the shoulder mobility to even attempt a proper pull-up without assistance.
If you can't hold your weight on the bar, you're not going to be able to pull it up.
You're unlikely to execute a pull-up safely or effectively. It's strength 0 before you can even get to strength 1.
That makes the dead hang just a non-negotiable foundation for overall physical development. So let's make this practical now. We need to transition into how to actually start.
And, maybe more surprisingly, how this movement provides a crucial nervous system reset.
Okay, so let's start with form, because there are 2 primary ways to do a hang, and they each have a distinct mechanical purpose.
Right, we have to begin with differentiation.
We have the dead passive hang and the active hang.
Okay, so the dead passive hang is your ultimate decompression movement. Here, the focus is all about getting maximum length and stretch.
So you just relax everything.
You completely relax your shoulders. You let your your shoulder blades shrug upward toward your ears. This maximizes the traction on the spine, and it allows the shoulder joint capsule to fully open. It's targeting soft tissue stretch and decompression.
The active hang, then, sounds like it requires more effort.
It does. In an active hang, your shoulders are actively engaged. You're pulling them back and down away from your ears. The scapula is depressed and retracted.
So that's more of a strength move.
This is pure strength training. It's prepping the body for dynamic movements like pull-ups. And it's teaching it proper scapular control under a load. You can even move between the two, which are called scapular pull-ups.
Okay, safety and form are paramount here, especially when you're applying your full body weight. Let's run through the checklist, but let's make sure we include the why behind each instruction.
Absolutely. First, obviously, use a secure overhead bar that can handle your weight. Second, and this is critically important for joint health, avoid jumping up to grab the bar.
Why is that so bad?
Jumping loads the shoulder capsule suddenly and violently. You want to use a bench or a step to line up your hands comfortably, and then gently remove your feet and let your body suspend.
Okay. And what about the grip itself?
Use an overhand grip so, palms facing away from you. Shoulder width apart is standard, but you can adjust slightly for comfort. Now, for the core form cues, keep your arms straight, which maximizes the stretch, and engage your core, squeeze your glutes, and engage your quads.
Why engage the core, glutes, and quads during a hang? It sounds like an upper body exercise.
It's to prevent swinging and to prevent your lower back from arching. When the lower body is loose, the core often disengages, and that can cause your back to hyperextend, which totally defeats the purpose of spinal decompression.
So you're creating a stable, full-body plank just hanging upside down.
That's the idea. And finally, keep your chin tucked down.
The chin tuck. That's a detail that often gets missed.
Tucking the chin ensures proper cervical alignment. If you're looking straight up at the bar while you hang, you can hyperextend your neck, which counteracts the very spinal traction you're trying to achieve.
So you want a long, neutral spine, from tailbone to the crown of your head.
Exactly.
And a quick word on contraindications. Who should avoid this, at least at first?
You should definitely consult a physical therapist if you have any acute shoulder injuries, recent surgeries, or severe carpal tunnel symptoms. The intense grip might aggravate median nerve compression.
And what about hypermobility?
People with shoulder hypermobility or severe instability should proceed with a lot of caution. They might start with assisted hangs or focus only on the active hang to maximize joint stability. And for everyone, stop immediately if you feel any sharp, radiating pain or numbness.
Let's talk progression. If a beginner can only hold on for 5 seconds, how do they build up to a meaningful duration?
Beginners have to focus on accumulating time, not on a maximal duration in one go. Start with multiple sets of, say, 10 to 30 seconds. And if you need to, use partial weight support. Keep your feet lightly on a box, or just your toes brushing the ground. The key principle here is consistency over ego.
Right.
We want to promote long-term connective tissue remodeling, and that requires frequent manageable stress, not a single session overload that just injures you.
So what's the ultimate time goal for general health and mobility based on the sources?
The common high-leverage goal is to accumulate 1 to 2 minutes daily, and that should be broken up into multiple sets.
Like 3 sets of 30 seconds.
Exactly. For specific duration benchmarks, the sources suggest aiming for an unbroken 90-second hang if you weigh less than 200 pounds, or 60 seconds if you're over 200 pounds. Most average people start around 30 seconds to a minute, but again, consistency is what matters most for joint health.
Now let's pivot to that final fascinating benefit, the one that extends far beyond muscle fibers and joint space. The nervous system reset. How does this intense physical movement actually calm the mind?
It's a really remarkable physiological side effect of forced stillness and deep stretching. When you're hanging, you activate stretch receptors all throughout your upper body. But more importantly, the forced stillness and the need to focus on maintaining that isometric hold. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system.
That's the rest and digest system.
It's the rest and digest system. When we are forced into this position, especially if we consciously use deep diaphragmatic breathing, we stimulate the vagus nerve. The physical decompression and the forced, non-moving focus help to interrupt the chronic stress cycle that is so common in modern life.
So you're actively regulating your nervous system.
You are.
It sounds almost like a form of moving meditation. The focus that's required to maintain the hold prevents your mind from wandering to, the usual anxieties of the day.
It is precisely that.
Yeah.
And by deepening your breath during the hang, you actively enhance that parasympathetic response, which directly reduces the production of the body's stress hormone, cortisol.
So you're not just decompressing your spine.
You are literally pressing a reset button for your entire stress response system. The complexity of modern life is met by the stark, grounding simplicity of just hanging there.
That brings us full circle to why such an incredibly effective, simple, and virtually free solution remains so profoundly unseen. We have to turn our attention to the philosophical angle now, which is where Charlie Munger's principles provide the perfect lens.
This is critical for understanding the context of our modern health paradigms. Munger, the late visionary investor and philosopher, he famously taught that most human suffering, whether it's financial or physical, comes from ignoring first principles.
And from having incentives that are fundamentally misaligned with the desired outcome.
Exactly.
So how does that apply to this incredibly simple exercise? Where's the incentive blindness here?
Modern health advice perfectly embodies this flaw. The entire health industrial complex rewards complexity over simplicity.
Because complexity is monetizable.
Because you can sell it. I mean, think about the economic chain. Chronic joint pain leads to specialist consultations, expensive MRI scans, maybe a surgical intervention, high-margin pain medication, complicated branded gym equipment.
Multi-step supplement regime.
Yes, none of which involve hanging from a simple zero-cost bar.
Right.
The dead hang is just too straightforward to sell, it's too accessible to brand, and it's almost too effective to profit from because it doesn't create a perpetual dependency.
No one can sell a course on using a pull-up bar for $5,000 when the bar itself costs $30.
That's the pure Munger lesson right there. Follow the incentives, and you'll understand why the simple, profound truths of movement are obscured by this constant noise and complexity. Because there is no profit in wellness autonomy.
That is a powerful realization. But the sources suggest that when people do cut through that noise and they implement the dead hang daily, something profound shifts in their psychology. It leads to what they call the return to autonomy.
This is the true gift. This is what outlasts the physical gains. They stop outsourcing their body to external experts. They stop chasing complicated, expensive answers. They realize their body is fundamentally fixable through consistent foundational movement, not through machinery or dependency. And that realization fosters physical sovereignty. They feel capable, they feel independent, and they feel in control of their own mechanical fate.
That autonomy, that realization that the human body has this ancient blueprint just waiting to be activated, that's the essence of what some sources call the silent revolution.
Health was never designed to be complicated or financially burdensome. It was designed to function optimally with movements that use nature and first principles.
Yeah.
When people commit to the dead hang, they're consciously stepping back onto that ancient blueprint. They're reacquiring the shoulder mobility of a primate and the grip strength of an ancestor who needed it for survival.
This movement isn't some novelty, it's a return. The shoulder evolved to function overhead, the spine evolved to elongate under load, the nervous system evolved to calm down under this deep rhythmic tension.
We're simply waking up instincts that the modern environment buried.
And the observable result is what they call the new human. A person who hangs daily just walks differently. Their chest is open, their posture is sovereign, their head is lifted, they're no longer slouching forward.
They possess a better range of motion and this increased quiet confidence that comes from physical capability. The dead hang is more than just an exercise, it's a transformation. It's a critical bridge back to the primal, unrestricted body you were designed to inhabit.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've covered the critical link between grip strength and longevity, the necessity of creating space in the shoulders through Dr. Kirsch's mechanism, the rehydration and decompression of the spine, and those profound benefits for calming the nervous system. This simple 2-minute daily habit is one of the highest leverage movements we can possibly adopt.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought. The true value of this practice, following Munger's principle, is not in the single maximal output, that ego-driven one-off long hang, but in the sheer consistency of the habit. The mastery is in the accumulation. The real victory is finding ways to stack that habit with your existing daily activities. Hang while the coffee brews. Hang during a pause in your work. Accumulate that 1 to 2 minutes daily regardless of weather or equipment or complexity. This shift from focusing on maximal output to focusing on a consistent, accumulated outcome is the key to mastering this ancient blueprint. The decision now rests with you. Will you remain shaped and compressed by the incentives of modern convenience, or will you step into the unrestricted, capable body that has been waiting for you all along?